Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. This is just a short form podcast series that we've been doing for many years now, just about 10 minutes of your time, just enough time to wolf down some pastry in the back of the cafe before you have to get back on bar, a la Shift Break, you know? So anyway, I am really excited to have you along today. Now, this episode is brought to you by La Marzocco. La Marzocco, of course, is one of the world's most popular espresso machines. And the reason for this is because they have nearly 100 years of handcrafted quality, dependability, and innovation, all directed at helping you be successful in your coffee shop. The heartbeat of any coffee shop is the espresso machine, and you want that heart to be healthy. And this is why I constantly find myself recommending espresso machines from La Marzocco. Machines like the KB90 espresso machine demonstrates their innovation in their straight-in portafilter locking technology for ergonomics. You've got the technologically advanced and classically designed Linea PB, which is one of my personal favorites. And you've got a lot of automation. You've got very little automation. There's many different kinds of espresso machines that they make to fit your coffee bar. Info at lamarzocousa.com, or reach out to them, lamarzocousa.com, online, and see what they have to offer. Have a conversation with them and let them help you select the right equipment for your cafe's needs. Again, that's over at lamarzocousa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rattleware. You can find more information at rattleware.com. Now, Rattleware, you know, I never asked them about this, and I've known the folks at Rattleware for a long time, but I get the feeling Rattleware, is it because it rattles the smallwares in the dishwasher, you know, the cups, the spoons, the pitchers, all that stuff kind of together makes this rattling sound? I don't know. But you know, the thing about Rattleware is that they are dependable. They make smallwares for your cafe that just work. And it's the small things that really hold the whole thing together. So if you're looking for smallwares for your cafe and you want to get them from somebody who has been designing them to stand up to the use of the everyday coffee shop business, then you should be looking at Rattleware. Go again to learn more at rattleware.com. All right, everybody. Well, today I wanted to talk to you about something that I think is incredibly important, and that is, it's a tip about feedback. And I was going through some notes that we have from past episodes, and this one happens to come from an episode that aired in 2018 with our friend Tom Henschel over at the podcast, The Look and Sound of Leadership. Tom is a longtime executive coach, and his podcast is one of the top podcasts in leadership in the world. So you check that out for sure. This was episode 104. And one of the things we talked about here in this conversation was that feedback should not be a lecture. It should be a conversation. And I thought that was, it just struck me that this is what our business is. It's a conversation. We tend to push the transaction, and we want volume. We want customers to come in and buy coffee, buy more coffee, buy coffee for your friends, buy it as a gift. Come in 3 times a day, please, you know. And in order to do that, we optimize our workflow, we optimize our times and everything else. We try to create an environment where the transaction is as seamless as possible. We remove obstacles for the customer to purchase coffee because the flow of money into our business is very, very important. And one of the things we might get wrong about communication is that we treat it as money, almost like a currency. That would mean that if we want to have a lot of communication, we have to treat it the same way we do as our coffee bars, or like we're transacting a customer's purchase of a coffee. And frustratingly, communication is more of a conversation than it is a transaction. As Tom says, it's not a lecture. And a lecture is something that is actually designed to communicate succinctly some kind of a point of view, which is probably a legitimate point of view that an owner has or a manager has about the barista's work or lack of work or whatever. And in that lecture, it's meant to be taken by the person, and then that person is supposed to turn around and do what the lecture content says they should do. And it's supposed to be simple. And we think that by word crafting the exact right thing, we can just keep it simple. I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you what to do, and then you just go do it. It's very simple. It's not a conversation. It's just do what I say. Now, in some level of the business, there is an expectation that we're not going to have a conversation about everything. We are talking about feedback. And feedback in particular is different than giving directives in the moment. So, for instance, if you are a lead barista or you are a manager working on the bar and you have to direct one of your direct reports, you have to direct one of the baristas. Now, if they want to have a conversation in the middle of a rush, this is just not the time to do it. Authority within position is meant to make effective and efficient guidance and work in the moment, but it's not meant to shut down communication when those expedited moments are done. We're talking about when you're having a meeting with somebody, you're sitting down to actually give them feedback about their performance, and you can't get yourself out of that dictatorial mode. Well, now you're just being ineffective, because feedback, as Tom says, is a conversation, because you really should want effective communication. You want the person to understand where you're coming from. And as we've said before, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And so you can ask questions. And one of the things that Tom tells us in this episode was about, hey, when you are doing this job and we're getting really busy, how is that going for you? And ask them the question that opens up the conversation, and get to a point where you can share the way you perceive things and where they are able to open up about the way they perceive things. And you will come away with a lot more information that will help you help them. So it would take the edge off of your communication, first of all, where you and the person you're talking to won't be defensive. So if you don't like the way that something is happening on the bar, you don't immediately just jump into, I don't like the way that you work and you need to change it, or else. You can investigate the cause. You can get their perspective on what's happening. Hey, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, working on the register, and how is that going for you? And let's have a conversation about this. I'm really curious about how things have been going there. And after they're done talking with you about what they feel, you can tell them what you've observed about their behavior on the bar. And when I say behavior, I mean certain actions that you see. And then we can have a conversation about getting to a place where the standards set for how we behave at the register or on the espresso machine or on the floor or wherever can be achieved in the light of the information we now have, the perspective we now have. Everyone understands everyone. So now this conversation turns to collaboration instead of combat. And I think that would be probably the reason I am so adamant that managers have time to manage and that leaders spend their time focusing on people, because these are the kind of conversations that can clear the air. They can purify the air of the culture, where when they don't happen, it becomes thick with assumptions and some embittered attitudes, and we come at it with a combative mindset. And so rather than dictating, rather than lecturing, we can pursue conversation and reach a conclusion that definitely is a solid, here's the next step. And you can step into your authority. You don't have to flush that in this conversation. If you're the boss, you owe it to everybody to use your authority in a very people first and responsible way, but you do have to use it. It would be irresponsible not to. So make this a conversation when you're giving feedback, and feedback should happen pretty often when it comes to both what you see happening that is needing some coaching, but also when it comes to things that you see that you love and you want to see more of in the cafe, and just celebrating, being specific and calling out the things that you love to see. That's another whole conversation we could have about praising in public and correcting in private. But these are some ways that I think we can do better in the cafe. And it affects everything. It affects our morale. It affects how customers enjoy the space. And ultimately, all of these quote unquote little things make a big difference in the way that we are successful as an industry. So I hope that this has been helpful today. As always, I encourage you to subscribe. You can also find Keys to the Shop on YouTube at Keys to the Shop. I would encourage you to subscribe there because we are going to be putting out more content on YouTube. The videos and shorts and everything else that have been going up recently have been fun to do. And I think there's going to be some really specific YouTube content coming out that you won't find anywhere else. So, and starting with actually a Q&A episode that's in production right now, where we have collected some questions from listeners that I'm going to be answering only on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe there. So anyway, thanks everybody. I really appreciate your support of this podcast. Share it far and wide. And I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.